Great. All right, it is 7 o'clock and we're live. Someone call a meeting to order. I'm Don Berube, 135 River Road.
Tim McDaniel, Select Board Rep.
Carrie Mack, Development Director.
I'm Stephen Bell, Drive.
50 Brown.
Jonathan Trangelo, 5 Whittier Drive.
Sandy Crystal, 1 Shoreview Drive.
All right, so new business, we got Mr. Steve Buckley's here to chat with us for a moment from Central New Hampshire Regional Planning Commission.
Oh, good evening.
Good evening.
Planning Board Chair. I'm your commissioner to the Central New Hampshire Regional Planning Commission, and my target is here in case I get a few things wrong what the commission is doing or what we're up to. So my effort tonight is to do 2 things. Tell you all about the great things that the commission is doing, but also to say I've held this position as commissioner, which, by the way, Bo gets 2 commissioners to the Regional Planning Commission since before the millennium. And it's time, most importantly, for a member of the planning board, I hope, and maybe by tonight's, the end of the night's meeting, you can select someone to do this, to be on the Regional Planning Commission. Now, I've been doing this most recently. I was, you would say, a minister without portfolio, because I wasn't on any land use board of the town for a while, and then I was appointed to the ZBA. And that's okay to have at least one land use board member from the town to the Regional Planning Commission. But ideally, it should be a planning board member. And the commission does wonderful things throughout the region. We have 20 communities in the Central New Hampshire Regional Planning Commission area that do everything from hazardous mitigation planning, trails planning. I know that trails planning is going to be going on in Bow this year. Hazard mitigation planning the town is doing currently through the commission. You did your master plan recently through Central New Hampshire Regional Planning Commission.
Almost done again.
Okay, well, and I'm sure you get, and you had significant assistance from Matt Monahan as your circuit rider for a while. So you know what we do, and we have provided tremendous services to the town, but it also broadens your perspective to be on the Regional Planning Commission, to see what's going on in Concord, Pembroke, Bradford, you know, all the communities that make up the central region. That's the beauty of the Regional Planning Commission. It opens that perspective and allows you to understand what other communities are doing, what other challenges communities are facing, and how they meet those challenges. From the planning board perspective, how you meet those challenges, either doing approval for subdivisions or site plans, but also zoning amendments. So I guess my hope tonight is you'll all, one of you, and maybe it'd be a fickle finger of fate pointed at one of you tonight, would say, yeah, I'll do that. Now, what I've told Mike is I'm more than willing to continue to sit as the commissioner from the ZBA until the end of another year, let's say. But ideally, again, someone from the planning board would join me and come to the meetings. Now, I do have a handout. As you may know, I work for the New Hampshire Municipal Association. We recently published a volunteer manual, which has a job description for most of the significant volunteer positions. And I'll hand this out so you can get a flavor for what the job entails. The bare minimum, and by the way, I'm not encouraging the bare minimum, a commissioner has to go to 4 quarterly full commission meetings, and they're right here in Concord, very easy to get to. What's that?
When they is it
It's an evening meeting, usually on a Thursday night,
Second Thursday of the month, quarterly.
yeah, quarterly. So it's not a real heavy lift in terms of extra meetings, but you get tremendous benefit from going to those meetings. You get to meet all the people who are involved in planning in the region. Plus, there's usually an excellent speaker and presentation on information, which should ultimately be beneficial to you as a member of the planning board. So I think what it does, it would make everyone here who's on the planning board a better planning board member. And again, open up that understanding, that perspective in the larger region that we live in. Maybe again, by the end of tonight, someone here will step forward and say, I'll be that commissioner and I'll be by your side for at least another year. But it is really time, I hope, that the planning board can have a member who can regularly go to commission meetings. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. Mike is here, can fill you in any other details about what the commission is up to and what we do for the town and also for the region.
That's a great pitch.
Well, but no one has said, yes, Steve, I'll raise my hand. I will volunteer. Oh, well, here we go. Okay. Oh, by the way, it is a 6-year appointment.
It's 4.
Well, it's 6, actually. It's 4. I got it wrong. It's a 4-year appointment, so you get to go for a while. So, Sandy, that would be wonderful. And all you have to do is tell the select board, I think. Maybe what would be good is the board could vote tonight to recommend to the select board that Sandy be appointed the second commissioner, and then eventually maybe another person would be another commissioner when I'm.
Because right now we have just about.
Just me. I'm just going, but we do have 2 commissioners. Right, that's
2 slots.
we will slot for 2. So every community gets a certain number of commissioners based on population. When based on our population, we get 2 commissioners. And a big important part of the work that we're coming up to in the next year is a new and improved regional plan.
First time since 2015, so.
It'll be exciting time. So that would be great, Sandy, to know that you'd be able to participate there. So again, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Other than that, it seems like I fulfilled my purpose here. Okay.
I'll make the motion to nominate Cindy Crystal on Shoreview Drive to be a commissioner in the Regional Planning Commission.
Sorry.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Well, my job is done. And
I was gonna ask if anybody else had any questions for about quick plan.
Oh,
You're good.
Thank you very much. Have a good night meeting tonight.
All right.
I'm giving you on.
I'm just emailing Tanya now, so we can vote on it on the July 23rd.
Thank you. Before we get into that, do you want to introduce me?
Oh, yeah, so we have a new planning board member as an alternate for the moment. Jessica Duke, thank you for volunteering. This is a pretty thankless job besides when we thank you, but.
That's it. That's the last one.
That's the last one. Sure, yeah, because it's not, David's not here, so yes, we can go time. Great. All right, moving right along. First on the agenda for public hearings is application 20124 Tyler Builders, continued from 5/16, and I hear that they want to, what's that?
Yeah, so a quick
you-
update since the last meeting is that they've worked with the Public Works Director on the driveway permit. It has come to light, I know previously it was understood that there was, the 275 feet of site distance could be attained 10 feet back from the travel way. It has since been determined that that's not the case. There's at 10 feet back, you can only see 215 feet to the right. You'd have to be 6 feet off the edge, the travel way in order to get the full 275 feet. So for that reason, Tim Sweeney, the Public Works Director, has denied their driveway permit. The next step is that they can appeal that decision to the planning board. So they are preparing their appeal, and they are going to consult with a traffic engineer of some sort to support their position as to why they believe it is safe, adequate driveway. So you will have that information to review probably at the next meeting.
Okay, so do we get a vote to continue the meeting?
Yes, and so to continue them and then also in effect extending again that 65-day review deadline.
Right. I'll-
Just,
yeah,
do you
re-
want to just
Yeah,
remove
yeah.
yourself from, just to make it very.
You can, so
You
you
can
can
just roll
recuse
away if you
yourself
want.
from.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the other thing. Yes. Yeah, you can stay in the room for, it. You know, you can't be on this side of the meeting, basically.
I'll make a motion to continue application 501-24 and application 401-24 to the July 18th planning board meeting, and to also give the additional 65-day, extend the 65 days.
Extending it to July 18th.
Second that.
Favor?
Aye.
Yep. Opposed?
They've already requested it. so-
All right.
Yeah.
All right, so on back. Go on to number 3, application 202-24, Global Montello Group 4, continued from 5/16/24. Site plan application for proposed retail landscape material for the greenhouse located at 506 Route 3A, map 40, block 2, lot 140, zoned in the South Bow Mixed Use District.
Good
Back
evening.
again.
Yes, what we got at this time. My name's Tim Bernier with Oil Tanner. Last meeting, the board, looking for some more information, about drainage particularly. So we put the brain truck to work on this, and did some pretty significant design changes. We eliminated, several, concrete storage bays and gravel yard. I put in a second, extension pond, put a outlet control structure in that connects this pond to the original pond. And put an outlet control structure on that pond. And by doing so, by eliminating the impervious and by adding the second pond, all the pre and post through the 10, 25, and 50-year storm event all have a reduction in flows during those storm events. So I think that's what they're at. What you guys wanted that to be 0. It's actually slightly less. Or significant figures, 0.3 is probably 0. We also got a driveway permit we submitted. In the cover letter we talked about, there was this one comment in the, so all the time talking with DOT, they wanted a bump. So this road is curved. The Route 3A intersection is granite curve vertical, which means that the ditch line where the stormwater runs is going down this road along this curb line and eventually comes to a catch basin. So when this driveway, if you go look at this driveway, when you have a curb like that in a lot that's below the road, which this lot is, you actually come up with your asphalt for 3 feet and then go down. And that keeps water, because if you don't do that, the water that's coming down this curb line will go into the driveway. So you do that, and that's pretty standard for curb line driveway detail, which is what they wanted. But then the permit came out and said, 3 feet back, we wanted 2 inches lower than the road to establish a swale. So, I read that and I was like, oh my God, now because, so we're looking at it, and so the driveway would go down and then it has to go back up again and then go back down again, in order to make what they wanted work. And that's just crazy. And plus it changes the flow. The flow currently goes down to the catch basin, and it would exit and it would go off and it would go down through people's driveway culverts. So I got a hold of the district engineer, today, and he's like, oh no, that's just the standard, we put that on every application. So he absolutely wants the road to have a bump, he wants the stormwater to stay in the curb line. And then after the bump, it goes down into the lot, so nothing from the lot can possibly get into the road, nothing from the road can get into the lot, which is the way it should be. So, so the way the design is exactly like that. You know, we extended the curb to along the fillets. So what they had done before was they just brought the curb up to the edge of the pavement of the driveway and just ended. And the problem with that is if you get any erosion at all on the edge of that, it can cause the runoff from the road to go into the lot. So what you're really supposed to do is run the curb around the fillet a little ways until you get to that bump in the pavement, and then you just blend it in, and that way there's no way for the water to get out of the curb line and the ditch line, essentially is what it is. So that's how the driveway is designed. The state's very happy with that. They're happy that nothing's no increase in stormwater. So I think we're pretty much there. So happy to answer any questions.
I have a couple of questions on the stormwater. Unfortunately, it's not in
If not,
In from development.
So in the third paragraph of the memo, it talks about the pre and post area draining to the swale.
Yeah.
And there's more area draining to the swale in post-development than pre-development. And if you look at the stormwater, the figures, it makes sense because it shows part of the area kind of draining to the north, where the new one, it's all kind of being managed by those two ponds. There's more area going, which I think makes sense. But then when you look at the model, it's backwards. There's less area that's being modeled in the post-development than in the pre-development. Yeah, could you?
Would you want to get this?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so it's gonna be kind of comfortable. Can I drive it?
Good luck.
So in pre-development, we've got 1.9 acres. Oh, maybe that's not what I'm looking at. 1.98, yeah, 1.9 acres in pre-development. And in your letter, it says yeah, and then in post-development, I'm still in pre here. There we go, here's post. 1.1 in the post-development.
so I'm working with some new folks, so I'm not sure. I'm not gonna be able to answer that question.
And then my other question that I had was, I went through and for each of the, let's see, for each of these storm events,
Yep.
I kind of put together a little table that summarized the velocity, the flow, and the volume. So those are all three different things. And the volume, off-site flow volume, is actually twice as much in post-development than pre-development. That's actually over twice. But the peak flows and velocities are all, like you described, slightly less. And our regulation, I understand it's a small lot. It's a small lot. It's not contributing like a ton of water, but it's still more water. And you know, it's going into the DOT right away, which is right into that pond downstream that somebody designed. It's gonna affect everybody kind of down a tiny bit. And our regulations, I did go, that's the other thing I wanted to say. I did go and look at our regs to see what they say about what's required. And it says that the flow, the total flow or the velocities have to be less in pre-development, which we need to change that. So technically they meet the requirement because the velocities are under and the flow is higher and it's or. I just want to point that out.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you can send as much water as you want as long as it's going slow. Or you could send water really, really fast as long as there's not very much of it.
With the regulations. But I didn't see that the reversal, I did actually talk to Bill about Bill Davidson did the report. I did actually talk to him about the volumes versus the peaks and he felt that that design was consistent with the town's regulations and given the size of the project and the actual volumes that we're really talking about, which are really small because a lot less than an acre. He thought it was very reasonable. So,
I think the DOT, did they look at any of that? Or did they care about anything?
we just told we're less that we aren't discharging greater volume of water. Seat bed. So what that means is essentially what it is, so I'm not sure where the pond is, because I walked the whole watershed all the way to where it crosses 3A, there isn't a pond.
Maybe they didn't put it in yet, but we walked that guy that's just downhill there. They were gonna.
There's on their site plan, it's to be on
Right.
the next. Lareco's gonna have a, yeah,
Oh,
yes.
yeah. What's the code? There to figure out it's an issue, but volume's very small. It's the same, so you're not gonna change pipe sizes, that kind of thing, because the peak flow is less. But over time, so the rain event is over, water slowly drains out. So we did development for all projects for 30 years, from 1987 till 2010, with all detention. So we still do detention for really small projects. Anything that's large enough to be AOT, you have a different set of criteria that you'd use. But we had the conversation in the office and felt that this was an appropriate way of handling something this size.
Terry, was there any other, I know the driveway permit, drainage, is there any other issue that we said, go back and fix it on? Those are the two big
No,
things.
there was a long list of waivers that you went through last time, and most, like for all the rest of them, it was determined that they weren't actually relevant.
I guess the only thing, because of the drainage changes, the planting plan is not, doesn't work, because you now have a basin in that one location.
We actually have more places to do planting, so we can keep the same number of plants and just put them around the pond instead of down in the green space that was there before. There's more opportunities for plantings now on the pond for shrubs.
I wasn't here for the last one either. So the intent is that whole upper left area is where you're gonna do all the snow storage.
Yeah, so we're gonna put the snow storage in this back corner.
Yep.
What happened to your little office? Okay, that's just moved up a little bit, the office.
Yeah, we had to flood the office up to get it farther away from the entry. Right, so we didn't interfere with that. And also had to move the pole.
And where's the power gonna end up now? Cause that would have been,
Yeah, so the power it comes in from this pole, it's gonna go to a pole and down and into the office base. If there needs to be light in the greenhouse, it's gonna be underground in the office.
Yeah, we do any lighting at all. be probably solar. The only power we'd have is if we run water to power the well that's on site.
Should be all underground.
It would all be underground.
Where's the on-site well?
Did it right here.
Right in the middle here.
Oh, okay.
I don't know where it is.
It's like right in
You
this
just drive by, you
area.
can see
It's
it.
not on,
Okay.
I don't think it's. You can see it when you go. Sticking up. Right above.
Okay.
I didn't realize, so we have a note on the plan that says it's gonna be decommissioned because it was in the middle of being regraded. So are you planning on putting a manhole over the top of it?
Yeah, it'll get cut down to grade and buried.
Is it a monitoring well or?
It's a drilled well right now, served the house that was there before.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, the well was put in 2008 or 9, I think. It's not, the original house had a dug well beside the garage. That well has been filled in and decommissioned. But the artesian one is still there.
So what I can do is we can verify and or it's comfortable with it, we could, I could have Bill send a memo explaining the issue with that you observed in the report, and confirming that his assessment is correct. So his assumptions based on the calculation are still the same, that there might, I don't understand how that.
And you're looking at like a 5-year plan on this, right? It was,
Yeah, at this point, we're down to 4. July was a year.
so I guess one of my questions is, what happens to this lot after that?
We have if the gas station doesn't take it over, we have the option to
The question is if they take it over, they're gonna have a use.
if they take it over, it's gonna become truck stop park. It'll become an entrance. Their major game plan was it was gonna become an entrance for the store, and then the truck stop had the other entrance. So they, I guess you wanna say the retail versus wholesale was kind of,
The cars versus the trucks.
yeah, was kind of something.
Your plan is to run this as long as you can until they.
Yeah. The amount of money I haven't invested at this point. Longer I can stay.
So we did regional impact last time.
Mhm.
Okay. In my sense, is that they did comply with what we said in a pretty contentious meeting last time. Might be time to, if people are comfortable with it, move it on.
Do you have an idea of how we can make sure that your concerns about the stormwater report are addressed?
I mean, we have a stamped document here. Okay, well. I mean, I don't know, I guess it would be like, I would like to know that what they did is right.
If we make a conditional approval, like confirmation, almost like a checking of their work.
Yeah, I guess, yeah,
Yeah, and then we can take another look at it.
You can have Bill send a memo explaining it. And then demonstrating to you, so that this is how it works and this is why it's the same. If it's not the same, then we'll have to address
Also, that pre and post area shouldn't be different, right?
It should be the same.
They should be the same, yeah.
And I don't want a left mess in 4 years, you know, which obviously, I mean, spending the money is gonna want to keep it there, you know, until a truck stop comes to expand. So I don't think I want to put a limit on the time you could do business there.
Yeah.
That's-
Yeah, I just listed it because it had come up in a previous meeting, so I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure it's discussed, but I don't think I would recommend that either.
So one condition would be a confirmation of the watershed analysis that Adam could look at.
Choose the
Any other conditions?
public.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a public hearing, so I'm gonna open this to the public if anybody has any comments or questions or. And seeing that, I'm gonna close the public hearing.
I have no questions.
I guess the only other, when we talk about the conditions, it would be to just make a statement about the same number and type of plants on the original plan need to be put on the
So number and type
site.
plants,
And the
Mhm.
signature.
signature on what?
The signature is missing, like, plan application.
Oh, no, that's,
That's been resolved.
yeah, sorry. I didn't know. Oh, that's our standard, that actually all the signatures have to be on the
Okay.
final plan, yeah, that's our standard.
So you want me to do that?
And that the waivers and conditions need to be listed on the final plan. So let's go back and talk about waiver. Not that listed. in- Okay. Waiver. Okay, so we'll just review together and make sure we're all on the same page about the waivers that are still needed. So, checklist item number 6, which is 5.02 I and J and 8.02 T is for utilities. So that would allow the utilities to remain overhead that would go to the new office.
It would actually go to pole.
Okay.
And then it would go, there'd be a panel. And then
Right.
everything off that panel, like what's physically going to the office would be underground.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay, but there'd be that one. You got an overhead going to a pole where. Right. With how the district. Structure that Unitil requires, and then from that point on, any power we have will be under. It is like a breaker panel LED. Right, correct.
So that's one waiver, and then the, in general, the aesthetic design standards, which include the screening, the parking performance, and the lighting standards, which close to meeting, but I think a waiver would just kind of cover that. And that's it.
I'll make a motion to approve application 202-24 with the following conditions.
You're gonna do waivers.
Have to include them in here.
Usually we do them first.
Okay. How do you want?
If you want to lump them in, you can, or
No,
you can do it separate. Just handle
No,
the
so
waivers first.
let's do the waivers first as usual. So. Can I see that?
Yeah, so that's-
How do I phrase this? Is this as a motion or? Okay, I'm gonna make a motion to grant waivers 502 I and J and 802 T regarding utilities. And 15.11 screening performance requirements, parking performance requirements, like 15.12 parking performance requirements, and 15.50 lighting standards. Those are the waivers.
Favor? Opposed?
All right, now I'll make a motion to approve application 202-24 with the following conditions. One, the confirmation of the watershed analysis. Two, that the same number and types of plants are used from the original plan. Three, the signature be on the plan. And four, the waivers and conditions we listed on the final plan.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And the finding of facts. What would you reference here?
It talks about the fact that it's a small site.
Not a huge impact.
Yeah.
It's in the business as it's being built fits the nature of the area that's in certainly. Saying that like the business sort of suits the area it's in. Small impact. It's okay. It's a good enough.
And they met all of the requests of the board.
Yes, they
for
did.
additional-
They did take away the advice and came back correctly. Yes. Okay.
Thank you,
Do you
guys.
wanna,
Appreciate it.
Hey,
do you wanna make a motion to formalize those with the findings of fact? You don't have to list.
So moved.
Hmm?
So moved.
Yeah, I'll second.
all right.
The third was that they satisfied all the.
Yeah, I thought this was the area.
It's a small lot.
All right. Moving along, application 405-24. The Bruce Family Trust of 2002 wetland conditional use permit to impact 250 square feet of wetland buffer. To build a 25 by 24 foot shed in second driveway located at 61 Boat Center Road, map 19, block 3, lot 90-A zoned wall. All right,
Hi, everybody.
sure.
All right.
Come on up. You can even knock the Steve Buckley
It's
down.
closed because I'm Steve also.
So you're Steve, all
Steve and
right.
Bruce. So, yeah. Moved to Bow about a decade ago. It's the first big house and got into it. And now we have two small children, 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. And we're kind of losing real estate inside the house pretty fast. And so the first thought was to do a second story, but that was going to cost us $600,000 at an 8% interest rate. Figured might as well just build a shed and then put all the kids' stuff and all the storage and put it all into there. And then eventually try to see if we could do an addition to get bigger footprints so that we can stay right here in Bow, we didn't want to move out of Bow. We love Bow. Bow, great school system. Everybody here is fantastic. But so we've been through the ringer trying to figure this out, trying to find a spot to put this shed. I call it a second driveway because that's what the prior owner called it, but it's not a driveway. It's just a little access where he used to have people park cars when he had big celebration of life festivals, where his wife survived cancer. So they'd have everybody park there and they'd tent all around the pond that you probably see in the drawings, and they'd celebrate life. And so he always called it the second driveway. So that's just a reference point for me for where I'd like the shed to go. But then I learned that there's a wetland that runs between my property and the neighbor's property. I learned all about 30-foot setback if it's under a quarter of an acre. Pretty positive when we started this venture that it was going to be that way. Learned pretty quickly that it is over a quarter of an acre. And so there's a 50-foot setback where it would go. The issue is that where I would be able to put it, there's this big, beautiful maple tree. I mean, gorgeous. Sandy saw it when she came out and did the sidewalk. And the root structure it would be bumping into a chunk of the root structure and it would be kind of settling more underneath the maple tree. So I might have to do some limbing and stuff like that. I really don't want to impact the maple tree. So my request is to be able to shift the shed, as you can see. Thank you for pulling that up.
Yeah, it was in the printed. The green.
Yes, so the black is the 50-foot. The red is the bare minimum 30-foot requirement if it's going to be a quarter of an acre. And I would like to move it to where the green square is right now, which is a 10-foot shift over. Now that dry well is just the prior owner had a sump pump and a perimeter drain in the basement, and it's just an underground tube that runs into that dry well and just pumps out all the water into the dry well. So it's not like my well is off to the right side. So just to clarify that. So I would cap off the dry well so that way it could still, sump the water into there and try not to mess that up. But it would prevent me from having to dig in close and being under that maple. The photo of the maple doesn't really do it any justice. It's massive. So we love the tree. I was trying to really not harp too much on the tree. So I was just hoping to move it over 10 feet just to save as much of it as possible.
Under conservation, is that okay?
Yep, we have a sheet of comments.
Can I ask one?
Yes.
To start, so in your original proposal, you had shown it's a 24 by 25 foot shed.
Yep.
With an additional over.
No, we're going to remove the overhang because that was going to overhang. I didn't realize that would impede on the border even more if it's an overhang. And I don't want to impede on the line any more than I have to. So I'm just going to remove that and just keep everything in this storage shed. Yep.
So the 24 by 25 foot footprint.
It's just the footprint. Yep, that's the exact footprint.
So you're saying the conservation commission said this, the buffer from here is 75 feet from this.
Right, because it's, our rules, talk about 30 feet for a wetland that, is less than a quarter acre, but with surface water, it would be 75 feet.
So I assume that it would be in.
Well,
in this
yeah, that
buffer,
would
it be
probably
in-
be in both. And also like I think this had noticed, the fire pit is actually within the buffer, the fire pit that had been put in some recent past.
Okay.
Um,
So you want that added to the CP as well?
right.
Yeah, we learned a lot on the sidewalk. I didn't.
I bet.
Well, I learned a lot about wetlands in general and just, you said it was a thankless job. And I just want you all to know that I am extremely thankful that you guys are taking your time. Like, it's not easy, 7 o'clock Thursday nights to be doing this. So,
Well, you have the town expert.
I mean, she taught me so much about just the pond and what to do. And, I always want to make sure I'm taking care of all the wildlife that's in some of the things the prior owner was telling me, things that you should be doing. Like so let's just say that I've learned a ton. I didn't think putting up a 24 by 25 foot shed would give me so much knowledge, but there's a lot of people out there that are a lot smarter than me. So I learn as much as I can when I can.
Did the Conservation Commission have other comments as well?
Yeah, there's, one is they had a waiver request for the NHB data check report, and the commission didn't feel that a waiver request was acceptable, because that's also kind of an educational thing. It's not necessarily limited to wildlife on your property, but for wildlife that migrate, they Fish and Game does a review and they look at the area. So you might learn about things that may cross your property that you haven't seen yet. So
Yeah, that was primarily, I don't mean to,
yeah,
that was primarily the suggestion of the person that did the wetland review. He's like, are they really making you do that? You shouldn't have to do that, yada, yada. So I'm like, I'm out of my depth with a lot of this. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to
he used to work.
so
Not in wetlands, but anyway. Let's see.
I agree that it's a good idea to do a data check. It's easy.
Right.
And it's,
Is it?
it is very
he
easy.
made it sound really.
But my question is, Is there anything coming from that that would affect, at least for you personally, Sandy, maybe the way you would approach this application? I agree that it's good information to have. I'm just curious if it would.
And I'll do it either way,
Impact it.
because if it is easy, I'd obviously love to learn more about.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm not sure.
okay. That's fine.
I know we had also noted about the shed and the design specs were different, but we've addressed that
Absolutely.
here. And I also, members also noted about the second driveway, because you're on a state road, so you really aren't allowed a second driveway.
No, and we don't use it as a second driveway, but the other guy that's just, he's like, oh yeah, park the cars down in the second driveway.
But,
We don't ever do that.
I believe you can get a permit.
oh,
I
okay,
think it's over 2, but.
oh, okay, but
But-
it's a state road anyway, so.
Right, so that would be it.
So yeah, either way, I'm not putting in a drive, it's not, except for my kid who rides his little Power Wheels Jeep and goes up into there. That's the only time we ever.
Yeah. I guess I did note that the way that the shed is configured, the large door that's on it faces the road.
Yeah.
So it's not, like the access is from the front versus from other places.
Oh, just because that was the easiest, because it's really flat in front of there.
Mm-hmm.
So just as far as bringing things in and out of it, the other side is very hilly, as you noticed from the
Right, yeah.
sidewalk. So that's why, yeah, oh, sorry, you have to zoom out a little there. So this was all flattened out. I've dumped loam and stuff down in there. But you can see on the back where there's a lot of hills. And so that's, to get in and out of a door we just figured it'd be way easier to get it from the flat spot.
Yeah, which is actually.
Which is like,
Yeah.
What's wrong with the?
I just said it's very, because that was sort of that driveway type of question was you have this big door, it faces the road. There was about the driveway. So if there's not a driveway there, that's fine.
I'm so thankful you could pull these photos because I did not.
And you're not doing this.
No, yeah, sorry, that overhang is no longer there.
Okay, the commission also noted, and I know I mentioned it to you when we were on the site, that there was, because of the blowdown of trees that he's had in the recent past, they ended up chipping a lot of it, and there's like very thick wood chips in the buffer to the point that it kind of, would smother existing vegetation. So I had just suggested that it would be good to sort of because it really goes right up to the wetland edge. Like the wetland edge where there's like water, because there's actually water there. In fact, now that I think of it, our rules talk about very poorly drained wetlands and poorly drained, and a lot of times that's not delineated, and this could actually be a very poorly drained wetland, which would mean it would also have a 75-foot buffer rather than a 50. I think a lot of it's the representation on the map and maybe not the ultimate decision that it affects, but I think that some of the wetland scientists don't realize that they need to delineate very poorly drained wetlands, because it was wet when we were there.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know if it matters, but it's not wet like that all year round. But of course, the wetlands guy says one thing, the plot plan person says other. I lean towards your breadth of knowledge on it, obviously. But as far as the wood chips, yes, absolutely. Like we talked about when the guy was cutting down the trees, he said, I can ship it, leave it. And after a couple of years, it will turn into this beautiful soil that I figured would then create plenty of growth for the vegetation. But like he said, if it's gonna smother it, whatever's there now, then I'm gonna lean towards what you think and I'll rake it back so that way that vegetation grows back. And then if the rest, like we talked about, we could use some of the wood chips on another part of the property, or I'll just pay to get them taken out of there.
Would it be, I haven't seen the site, would it be appropriate to request some additional native buffer plants in that area to help it revegetate or to help mitigate some of the impacts that are being caused?
Also, I don't know if it matters a lot, but the trees that were there wasn't a ton of vegetation in there already. There was like dead leaves and things like that, but I don't know if that matters.
Yeah, it probably would be good to, add some vegetation along the, kind of the wetland line at the side.
Would that be ferns? Or
No, it'd probably be more like shrubs. I know that people often plant blueberries, but you don't want to do all blueberries.
they really?
That's
They
the
do?
easiest to go to.
Is it really?
You don't want to.
I'm sure the kids would love it, but
You know, some blueberries are good. Or planting some blueberry bushes are a good choice, but not all of them. But there are, and I can send you, I think we have a list of shrubs that would be good in that area. And it, you know, it may be that it may not be till the fall when you might be able to find the plants. That's the other thing, but that would probably be a good idea there.
And is that something you'll like require for this, or just?
Sure,
Suggest.
yeah, I would say, trying to think of in what area.
do they grow big? Or
No, I mean, there are some that are shorter and some that are taller
okay.
and
Yeah, I
stuff.
just didn't know if you wanted like visual barrier into there too to protect anything.
No, it's really more of a habitat. And it also protects water quality, and when it rains, the water hits the leaves of the vegetation and doesn't hit the ground as strongly and stuff, so.
I'm also gonna find the other end of that pipe. I forget the name of the lake.
Right, yeah, there's an emergency, you know, kind of like an outflow, like an overflow in the pond, and you can see the one end in the pond, but you can't see where the other end goes. We were looking, but we kind of had some idea where it
Like, you know,
probably,
that thing tube goes straight, and we went to straighten the other end, and she thought she found where the other end was, but
but you'd have to
It would've
really
taken a shot.
kind of dig more and stuff.
it's probably a good idea to find the other end of that.
Yeah.
That pond doesn't.
So maybe like 10 shrubs along the edge, and I would say the more of the front part of it from like the pond forward.
Fine with,
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in a landscaping family. I got a green thumb for a living, so if you want me to plant some shrubs, I'll
So
probably.
it'd be,
do
yeah, it would be native, native
Yeah, whatever,
shrubs. And
whatever
like
you
I
think
said,
is best.
we can get you a list.
Your list and Sandy's a great resource. So we
Yeah,
can
I mean,
work
just
together and
like,
figure out.
just
what's best.
absorb everything you can. 'Cause Just wish there was like a good checklist online where you could. Read all of that stuff.
Make a motion to accept and then the application is complete.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You'd open this to public too, right? This is a public hearing. If anybody from the public wants to comments, questions. Seeing that, I'll close the public hearing. Oh, what, do we have one?
Right, use the town resources, right?
What? We good? Yeah, well, yeah. Nobody, right now, did anybody have anything?
I was
No,
betting $1,000 my neighbor was just gonna buzz in somehow just to be funny, you know? My neighbor Jason's a hoot, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna get that shed put up? I'll call into the meeting." Please don't.
You gotta come in person. if you want to
He's-
talk about it.
he's-
So, yeah, I close the public hearing.
Make a motion that this does not create regional impact.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
So waivers.
The database check, it sounds like we're not gonna ask for waivers.
Well, yeah, so either you need to approve the waiver or get the, do the check. So you could make it a condition that he submits the
Mhm.
results of the check.
Yeah,
and then
it's $25.
This guy made it sound like it was gonna be, hundreds of dollars and take.
That
it's
he
gonna
might
add
be thinking
4
about the
months.
functional assessment. That one is.
Yeah, the functional assessment is
the
the
other
other waiver. That's fine.
Oh,
So
okay.
there's, you requested 2 waivers, so one of them was an easy thing.
Okay,
Right.
$25, yeah.
But Sandy, the wetlands functional assessment, you said it's fine. right?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
It is.
But Sandy said it goes on that.
There's no good.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
If there was nothing in the area, it's free.
You can do it.
Yeah, you can actually go online and do it yourself. I can give you the,
I apologize for wasting any of your time about it. No, man.
I would make a motion to grant the waiver for a wetlands functional assessment.
second.
Adam one.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I appreciate it.
All in favor? Opposed?
I was writing on the condition of, correct the buffers on the plan. Do the NHB database check. Agrees to, plant native shrubs, approximately 10. Remove the wood chips from the wetlands buffer. Stamps the signatures on the plan, as well as listing the waiver and the conditions on the plan.
Yeah, let me see if we want that waiver this time. We just answer. Because we don't like, there's no.
I'm not gonna say all that again. We'll just pretend I didn't.
And then,
The buffer thing, changing the buffer on the plan, that's also gonna change the buffer impact too, right?
correct, and then the other thing is including the fire pit area.
Yeah.
So basically,
Right.
so
So we have.
So what- So basically, they need to, the buffer around the pond should, sorry, I must go fast. As fast as the thing will go, which isn't very fast. All right, so in the application, it said that the impact was 250 square feet, and that was based on, I think, 10 feet times 25 feet long, basically. In reality, this buffer here around the pond is marked as 30 feet. It should really be a 75-foot buffer because it's surface water.
Gotcha.
So that is gonna extend it, up here. So
How many
basically
square feet is shed?
600.
25 by 24. So
Yeah.
basically the whole,
Yeah.
I think it's probably most of it, if not all of it, isn't
If we
it?
get a
might hit
waiver
the
for all of it?
Might hit the house, but the house is already there.
Okay.
And then in addition. The impervious. I don't know. But basically, we need a new.
Okay, so have the to 75, 75 feet
And
around
then
the pond,
recalculate the total.
and then
impact,
recalculate the total impact.
Basically the area of the garage and the area of the fire.
Essentially.
So that would
Okay,
do another
so 600
condition.
square feet plus whatever the fire pit. I have to go back to figuring out how to do math.
So that we'd add a
Shed,
condition to
and the
recalculate
fire pit.
the
Fire square.
impact.
Fire square.
Yeah.
Ginger, another condition would be, recalculating the impact area after the buffer is changed. Or on the plan. Any other conditions?
Let me get that. Did that cover all of the conservation commission's comments?
Think so. That's where I'm starting from.
I get like a bullet point.
Yes, you'll get a
Okay,
letter
thank
with
you.
them listed
Do
out.
we want to suggest that the name of the building be called a shed versus a garage? Or does that not make any difference?
I was asking that when I first started this because I don't know what the difference is.
There is a, I think the garage is for parking vehicles and the shed is for stuff.
Change. Another condition, Ginger, would be changing garage to shed on the final plan.
Oh, you wrote garage, right?
Okay.
So that is a
Sorry.
That's
I looked at that plan
the
like
size
1,000
would
times
be
and I didn't notice that.
That's the
it's a
problem.
garage.
Once you look at it long enough, you don't. see
I
it.
know, it's, first I was just like, wow, there's no property, that's fantastic.
And this isn't a condition, but obviously you're aware that building.
Oh, yeah, yeah, Scott's gonna help me out with that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
some people think they get through here and they're free to go.
Oh, no, this is just the yay or nay or whether I can do it or not.
Okay, just making sure everyone understands.
I just like sitting here. 'Cause I know like have a seat now.
Alright. I'll make a motion to approve application 405-24 with the following conditions. That the correct buffers we put on the plan and the resulting change in impacted area be recalculated. That native shrubs of approximately 10 be used. That we remove wood chips from the buffer. That the waiver and conditions are on the plan, that an NHB database check occur, that we include the fire pit area in that recalculated impact number, and that on the plan, the word garage be replaced with shed.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Good second.
That's it?
And the second. Okay, the findings of facts.
He's saving a nice maple tree.
He's saving a nice maple tree.
There's no other alternative of a
Yeah.
location for where he can put a structure.
Key findings of fact are that it meets the standards. 10.0.
I was gonna say
Yeah,
the
that too.
conditional use permit.
So, 10.01 is specific to wetlands and 12.05 is generic. Criteria.
When I say meets the what up to?
The criteria.
Criteria. And we need motions for this? Do we always do motions for this?
I think it's better,
Okay.
yeah.
Nice, nice. Second.
All those in favor? Opposed?
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate your. Great.
All right, moving on. Application 205-24, 100 Dow Road LLC. So, Chris Reynolds, site plan application for retail bulk landscape material business and parking of landscaping equipment, plows, etc. Located at 100 Dow Road, map 25, block 5, lot 75, zone limited industrial I1. Howdy.
I'm James Meinica with Independent Design. This is Rebecca McWilliams, also with Independent Design. We're working with Chris to try to undo this little naughty situation he's gotten himself into. So just to start with, thank you for looking at our incomplete application with lots of questions about what we can do to fix what's going on over here. The property was a very messy property before he bought it, and there's been a bunch of cleanup that was done by the previous owner. There's been cleanup that's been done by him. The cleanup being done has involved earthwork and pulling cars and trash and debris out of the ground and things like that. And we're trying to figure out how do we get back on the good side of the town. And, we're willing to do all the things that everybody's asking for in here, but we'd like some clarification on, do we have to survey the whole site? Do we have to do wetlands for the whole site? Are we just talking about the area where he's put in the bins? Are we, we know that the structure that is on the bins that are 3 blocks high need to be engineered and need to have drawings and need to have permits, and we totally get all that. We are working with an engineer right now to get all that information and go forward, but we wanted to have this conversation first before we spent time and money. And Chris is trying to make this place better. So
So obviously, I didn't do a real checklist review because a lot of the checklist is incomplete at this point. It provided a list of items that the planning board might want to see some more information. This general things that I felt were missing. So if you want, we can run through that list, and then the planning board can give the applicant an idea of what they want to, what you want to see, so that they know what the homework assignment is. So the first is grading drainage stormwater management. I don't know if you want to address each item first, or
well, so I
what
mean,
you have provided. Or...
So if we could go up to the 1.0 sheet that we had submitted. Okay, so and all of what I've tried to do here is, we are architects, we're not civil, we're not, we're not providing a civil drawing here, but what we did was we took the GIS drawings that we could get, we took the old survey, we laid things on top of each other, and we're just scaling based on the GIS of where are the things happening right now. The red lines with the hatching are the outside of that red line is the property boundary as it lays out with the GIS information on the town website. The red buffer is the setback according to the previously filed drawings, and I've added 10 feet to it because the setback the zoning has changed since the previous site survey was done, just to kind of give an idea of where that is. The majority of what he has on site for his materials handling bins are 2 blocks high, and they are, they're on compacted soil. There's asphalt in them for housekeeping, so that when he's scooping the materials, he's not digging up things and just making a mud hole and making things run off the site. In doing that, he's covered about 12,000 square feet with asphalt. The area downhill of that where you see mobile, the label there, it says mobile, just below that whole, from that area down to the white line around, which is where he's put, he's tried to be doing his berm, his pollinator garden, his planting to try to, make everything look nice around here. That's about 28,000 square feet of gravel that so far in the 1.5 years that he's been there, he's not seen water rejected out of that surface and not really seen water pooling over there. Again, we retain a civil engineer and get into like that specific of that, but we also wanted to clarify that, it appears to us that, some of these roads and things are not, the driveway and things on here were done with the previous owner. They're not on, it seems like some things were done and now he's being called to the carpet for things that were done before he got there. And like the second entrance to the property, I don't know who pulled the permit to do the second entrance to the property, but that second entrance was there before he was there. Yeah.
So there's a house.
There's a residence there with a driveway, and there's a second entrance there, and some questions on the, on this list were pertaining to the entrance and signage and, coming in that driveway, traffic flow, traffic pattern. We've gathered information as far as the number of customers he's had in the past year, which basically works out to from 1st of April to 31st of October, 1.5 vehicles per day, including his deliveries. So whether it's somebody coming to the site or whether it's one of his vehicles, there's 1.5 trips per day of material leaving the site.
1.5.
1.5.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just. So and again,
Is this where Bo Paving had the sign up? So this is
yes,
that.
and also just so we understand, we've made a list of the folks who are renting space right now there, who were renting space on the site previous to the purchase, like the storage containers from Go Paving, the curb folks. There's a list of things that have been going on here, and it was looking at the previous images of the old images with the storage trailers and things. It's hard to tell what's what and who belongs to what. Now that things are cleared up, it's really easy to see, hey, there's storage containers here and things like that. And now he's being told you need a permit to have a storage container to have things stored in it on a materials handling site where things may be coming and going. And we've had conversations with Carrie here about, do we actually need to get a permit to receive materials on a site for a business that receives materials and sells materials every time we get a shipping container in to park that shipping container? If we're going to be 120 days, I'm told that's a temporary building. So that means I need to get a building permit to put a storage container there. If I'm a company down on 3A and I'm getting storage containers in materials and they're sitting there for 6 months, are they getting a permit for every one of those storage containers? Or right. So we're
So one piece that I do
Yeah.
want to add to this, just so it's out there. I'm familiar with this site. Many years ago, I went to this site to buy some curb because we needed some curb. This year, as I'm doing my landscaping and I see the ad in both times, and I needed some nice Riverstone. I when I went, I learned of their situation. They're in.
thanks for visiting.
Yeah.
It's a nice site, especially since it's been cleaned up.
I will say from even when I went and got the there was just a lot of stuff out there, and it did look like things were trying to get cleaned up, but I got some nice New Hampshire river stuff. But anyways, I just wanted to put that out there, and I had, one of the things, many years ago, I went there to pick up landscape materials and turf. So I didn't really, it was I was surprised to hear that, not that it was so out of whack where it is.
And let me,
So
yeah, sure that.
there's been a mason on site, like our previous tenant was a mason. There's previously been bins set up. Bo Paving they've relocated 2 of their bins because they always had material on site, just the stockpile hard pack and whatnot. Previously on the property, they manufactured and sold pallets. And there's been landscaping happening on the property, and our understanding when we purchased the property was those things were kind of like grandfathered in because it's always been there. No one had an issue. And then all of a sudden we have an issue. Because we filed for Grumps last year and we operated out of there. This is our second summer. Last year we sold wood, loam, some stone. We've been selling winter materials as well. Most of that stuff is, by appointment, just because of the hours. So we would do pre-storm load and then after storm loading. So we're just, trying to clean the property up, make it look nice for everyone. I've met a couple of the neighbors that are on the left side of us, you know, just of waving through the woods and no one, and, you know, everyone who's a current tenant, you know, every time they would come there, they were always amazed how much cleaner the place was. And they were all excited that, you know, taking the poison ivy off the side of the building was happening. And, you know, they got a new roof and, you know, we're just trying to pick away at things slowly and just try to make it so, you know, when we purchased the property, part of the purchase and sales agreement was to make sure that no one was living on the so there was 2 campers by the previous owner that allowed to live on the property. And we didn't want to inherit these, you know, illegal tenants as we saw, and, you know, mitigated that problem. So having a couple bins, you know, and having that whole, you know, thing happen as far as, you know, a change of use, in my eyes, didn't really see a whole change of use. It was just like a lateral move as far as, you know, using for what it is. Obviously, we're here to go through the process, and I just, you know, whatever we need to do to be, you know, in your good gracious. And I like it when my brother laughs at me. But yeah, so we're here, and
It might be easier. This list is a lot of stuff that we as a group really ask what members know is there anything on this list that you don't want to do in your next round? That might be easier. And then we can say what else we want to add to it.
This is the additional information section.
Other comments
Other comments.
on page 2 of 3 is what
Other
area
comments,
we sort of recommended.
Yeah.
Items that we discussed.
Yep. So, I mean, yeah, all right, if I could work up from the bottom, so traffic flow on the site. The existing driveway is a 2-way driveway that has served the site and the tenants at the back of the site. If we're adding a car and a half a day, or, you know, let's say we go up to 5 cars a day, or 5 vehicles, whether you're loading a pickup truck or a pickup truck pulling a trailer or something, you've got a 60-foot, 5-foot load aisle within, you know, through there. And I apologize, I neglected to label the dimension on that aisle on the original drawing, but it's 65 feet wide. I forget the length of it, but you can queue at least 2 trucks with trailers in there while you're loading. As far as the direction you'd be pulling through there, we wouldn't be labeling a direction because it really depends on what they're loading up with. You're going to put the trailer or the back of the truck near whatever pile it is and position it based on where whoever's driving the loader tells you to load it. The operational, right? So I don't think I think we would like a waiver for the traffic flow through. We can certainly provide the operational brief. You know, the concept for operation in the very rough sense is April through October, 8 to 5. You know, and because it's landscape materials, it would be best to be open on Sunday, 8 to 5 as well. But if there's concern that 5 o'clock is too late on a Sunday or 8 is too early on a Sunday, because there are neighbors nearby, then
I don't want to be there.
you don't want to be on that. All right. 8 to 12. So 8 to 12. Yeah, I know. And Carrie and I talked about this, and I was like, okay, so there's no real town regulation on it. So, like, you know, right. Yeah. Yeah. And also, you know, it's a small business starting up in a new niche. You know, it's a landscaping company trying to grow in a different direction. So, you know, this is the idea for the starting point on it. And, you know, the concept is that there's somebody there on site to load as much as needed right now. And it's your father right now, pretty much.
He's intermittent.
Okay. He has help though, right?
Yes.
He's not by himself?
Trump does
Right.
help,
So,
yeah.
so he's also offering senior daycare on site.
Yeah, tax credit.
The refueling and servicing, you refuel off-site and the tanks on-site are not currently yours?
Yeah, those are,
Okay.
those were, I think those used to be classic curves. And then one
So
of the
you're trying to determine whose they are right now?
allegedly Bobby owns them.
Right.
from Bo paving.
So that's where we are on the fuel tanks that are there currently.
How much tank?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I know there's one in a little hut with like a concrete
They
barrier
both look smaller than 300 gallons to my farmer eyes.
with my farmer. And then there's one that's outside that's not in a structure. I don't even think that one has a pump on it. I think it's just
Yeah.
a dream of his, it's just in my way, essentially.
Not in his bin area, by the way.
No, it's up on the upper parking area.
So
To the,
how do you handle refueling your equipment?
I have just a transfer tank in the back of the truck, and a lot of times we just like during storms or whatever, we just drive to a station because it's easier because they're usually out. But yeah,
And diesel goes bad.
yeah.
So I think we'd want a waiver on the fueling, because I don't think we'd be changing anything that was existing there previously. And if we
Yeah.
do change anything, we'd be trying to get rid of tanks that aren't in use.
Honestly, that just requires a note that
Okay.
says, do we refuel on site? Do we not?
Okay.
Like, it just needs to.
Okay. I mean, I can definitely note on the plans the amount of impervious area that they've added for the, bins. I mean, that's an easy calculation. But the question is, do you want the total impervious area that's on the site for all the existing stuff? And that's, can I use what the existing calculation was on the town's website and add ours to it? Or do we need it actually from a civil engineer sealed?
Typically, you would get engineered numbers. Part of that is because there's max percentage of.
Yeah,
impervious
right.
If adding your bins was putting you over that limit.
Mhm.
that would be an issue.
Right.
I don't know, I'm not saying that's the case, but just that's why.
Right.
That is a requirement.
Yeah, we don't anticipate any change in outdoor lighting. We have daylight during the hours we're operating in the summer, and in the winter, it's gonna be dark all the time anyways. Signage, we have no intention to do any new signage right now. If there is any new signage, the permanent signage, it will come back here before come back for permitting appropriately. And is he allowed to do the temporary sign out there stuck in the ground?
You just need a temporary sign. permit.
Yeah, just everyone has to picked a tree and
Yeah.
nailed their sign to it. So like our goal is eventually to clean up the corner and put signage for the property, but
So I think that'd be a good thing to just show that on the plan, like what is the end goal? A nice sign at the entrance?
Well, I mean, and we would like to come back with a plan for a sign, but we have not designed a sign. We don't, the budget for a new sign right now doesn't exist. The budget for, yeah.
But on the plan,
So-
you can at least mark,
We're gonna
like,
put sign.
from an overhead view.
Yeah.
Mark
Okay.
square.
Future sign? Excellent. We can give you a future sign tag.
And
That is fine.
You should work with the building inspector to get a temporary sign.
okay.
That's easy.
Parking layout and calculations.
So
No, we're
you-
gonna no wetlands. Yeah. No wetlands. Sorry.
Yeah, so what is the situation
Yeah.
regarding wetlands?
Okay.
That's kind of a big part.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? I don't know.
Well,
So you've
The-
got,
so the property has the only time there's water on the property is from snow melt. And then it goes, there hasn't been any water, it percolates through the ground, and then literally the snow melt comes to a certain spot and then it just stops and it goes somewhere. I don't know if it's like a bedrock. There used to be, it's kind of actually neat. And one corner, there's where they quarried the granite for the old barn. So you can see where they cut part of the granite. And that's kind of where all the water for the property just goes. And there's no runoff into the woods. It just,
okay, so here's my thoughts on wetlands, and there's all of this. You have existing conditions on site. We know there's wet on the edge of the site. We know there's wetland at the bottom of the site. We know there's drainage. And I mean, it's not that they're flagged wetlands, it's just like, it's wet. So there's gonna have to be someone looking at this stuff. Question then becomes where we've got these two high bins that are on a site for material storage and material handling. And they're not pinned to the ground, they're held down with gravity. He's got equipment on site for moving these things. As far as he's concerned, these are here for as long as they have to be there, but they're not, I mean, it's not attached to the ground. It's a site wall feature, which for a lot of things, you're allowed to have these site wall features within the setback. And, and there's also the question of like, what was the condition of the site as far as what was already covering this stuff, what was already on the site within these setbacks to the wetlands. And so if we have somebody go out there right now and delineate wetlands, and they come in and they give us a buffer, and that buffer is a 75-foot buffer and it overlaps already disturbed area, what are we establishing by having the wetlands delineated? What is the value of having that done? What is it going to do? Is the board then going to come back and say, well, there's the spill and we can't determine whether the previous owner did something here, whether it was something that happened during the cleanup of the site, and now this all has to be removed? And do we start trying to figure out, well, who exactly did what, when to do this filling stuff that went on that was supposed to be cleanup of the site? And that's our concern of having, opening the wetlands can here. Well, we want to make sure that we're fixing anything that we have done incorrectly, but at the same time, paying for the full wetland survey to then come back and say, what did we get a opinion from a wetland scientist before having the survey that the planning board would then take a recommendation on? Does the town have a wetlands person that they use for things where there are questions of, in situations like this, what does the planning board do in this kind of a situation that doesn't require the person who's trying to fix the property then have to spend $300,000 on a wetland survey and not have an operating budget? So
my thought is that we need to have an existing conditions, because you're kind of putting two things together. Because we need to have the existing conditions, and I think actually a regular survey, you can't use the online GIS. That's for boundary lines.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
That doesn't work. I know from using it, it's not accurate.
So when you say existing conditions, at what point in time is that?
Well, you send somebody out and you say, okay, where's the wetland and whatever, where is kind of impervious and whatever. And then it comes back to the planning board and we say, okay, well, we know a lot of this was in the past, we'll consider that was something that happened in the past. We can't, make you come in for wetland CUP for something that someone else did. But just that we know where we're starting from. And I think that's the important point, is just know where we're starting from. And then we can take that and say, okay, well, it's not like a pristine property or a open property that's undisturbed and we'd want to maintain the buffers. I mean, if the buffers are gone, we're not going to have you plant shrubs in the middle of your facility there. So that's my perspective.
And also to know where your wetland buffers are, like
right,
if you're doing
or anything in the future.
or anything.
Right.
Because I mean, if this was a site plan that came before us, you'd have to do all that.
And I would probably just go with that is, it might make some site changes in just where your runoff is,
Mhm.
and how to grade a little bit different. So it's not.
Technically, there is no wetland. It goes into the ground. Like I literally, it's been graded, so it's like a bowl. So none of that water is going down anywhere. It's literally goes into the ground. I don't know what's underneath that area. just the
Sound
water.
sandy.
Well, I mean, it's just because you don't see water on the surface doesn't mean it's not a wetland. You know, we don't do wet sneaker tests
Yeah,
for wetlands.
well, what I'm saying is like the parking area. I'm not saying down below. The
Right.
none of the water, I'm not, obviously you want someone else to come in and say that, but it doesn't go. It just goes through. It literally, like, it never pools up there. Everything is, that was always been.
So.
So I don't know where it goes. I know I
mean-
didn't want it to go anywhere it shouldn't go, because
Is this all asphalt?
no, that's all gravel. Yeah. The only thing that's paved is like the actual bins.
Yeah, actually, I don't
So
know.
like along here or?
Yes.
This is the actual bits themselves.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that there's the photo sheet on the end has got a few views of it, just to.
Oh, yeah. There's a few other things.
We got before pictures too.
Oh yeah, so I see it in here, like meetings themselves. Find them.
I mean, that's why we were saying for the plowing part, like, we would not be plowing this area in the
Yeah.
winter. It's just, you drive over it, you pack it down, you sand it if you have to do something to it, but.
It
Um,
literally melts in like 2 days now. Like, it's not worth digging it up.
So we want the wetlands delineated.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Parking layout and calculations?
So I see you indicated some parking areas, but as far as like the board to be able to figure out how many spaces there are, even if they're not, formally marked in the field, I think on the plan, if you can mark out and show us how many cars can fit there, do you meet the parking requirements? Can you sketch out some, can you sketch
You can
out some
draw
parking
on
spots on the
paper.
plan? And tell us how many spots are provided in theory? Because the way it was drawn on the plans, it just shows an area that's designated, but there's no way for the board to confirm that it meets their parking standards.
Aesthetic.
What would the requirement for parking spaces be for a facility like this where people are not parking?
It's probably limited.
I mean, the tenant parking is already all existing for the existing tenants that are already there, which aren't changing. So, I mean, again, I don't have a problem drawing parking spaces and numbering parking spaces on here, but my question is just like,
What do we need?
why? Like, I have,
You can request a waiver to any requirement.
I think the parking, I mean, I would request a waiver to the parking layout and calculations because all the parking for the existing tenants is existing and we're not parking new people here.
I mean, pretty much any customer they're selling to is coming in with a little dump truck and.
They're gonna be ticked if they have to get out of their car.
The site plan should show where.
So it does show that,
So-
it shows an area here. Just like this.
Oh, okay.
You,
There are 3 24 by 24 parking spaces.
Pretty big spaces.
is there a future plan for retail greenhouse shop? So,
So the reason that it's under retail was because we didn't want it to be a gravel pit. Because we were initially told that we should be asking for this to be a gravel pit, and we're like, but if you give us approval for a gravel pit, then we can actually extract gravel in the future, and that's probably not great for the neighbors, so I don't think that you guys are gonna approve that. So is there something other than a gravel pit we could be asking for?
Do you have a plan to put a greenhouse?
The
Retail sales in the greenhouse?
I have no idea.
he doesn't, because I
I'm
don't
trying
know
to
the farm.
Each day, I'm just trying to,
so.
I mean, maybe one day we'll just, not run our landscape business and then, put up another.
So with that, I mean, really, it's,
Just
what
don't
you're
plow.
trying to do and it's set up there. If another day that, yay, we're gonna do a greenhouse, you're starting over.
Yep.
You're
Like,
going
well,
back
that's
and.
the nicety of having, things that aren't permanent. As far as the bins, like, we can just move them, like, if, obviously, if we do a greenhouse, it would be at a different location, but that's the nicety of having something that's not a permanent fixture.
I would like to ask the board to review the table of uses. The building inspector and I looked through it, and it is not easy to pin this into a category. And the building inspector and I kind of came up as there's a use that's called commercial greenhouses, including wholesale and retail sales. And that was kind of the closest we could find. There isn't a really good category to call it. The other thing that could be close is a contractor's yard. So we're looking in pages like 21 to 24 of zoning ordinance.
What was Tony's? That's pretty close to it.
Yeah, I think his was the greenhouse.
Oh, yeah, no, she knows what it is.
Contractor's yard?
So it could be considered a contractor's yard. The definition of a contractor's yard.
I mean, pretty much the homeowner's going to you is the homeowner that has a dump truck. Yeah, I mean,
Pretty
most
limited
that's how,
customer base.
I mean, I guess you'll just dump something in the back of somebody's pickup too, right? I mean,
Yeah, well, most of our sales are, so that's what we're trying to do differently than.
yeah, but you're not shipping it. I mean,
Well,
they're ordering it online, paying for it online, but they're going there to get it.
Yeah, we do curbside pickup.
But less than a quarter of his business was people coming to the site. Most of the
Most of it,
business
yeah,
was
calling
him
out.
delivering it from the site. Because he owns the dump trucks and it's just
Yep.
so much easier.
So most of it's delivered.
Yeah, well, within a block, things.
Yeah, you make money
Yeah,
that side, yeah.
yeah.
So I'll say, so if it's determined it's a contractor's yard is not permitted in that district. I think there could probably be an argument made that it already was a contractor's yard, and that isn't what's changing here. What's
Well,
changing
is that not
physical
one of your
changes
tenants
they've
right
made
now?
to the site.
I mean, one of his tenants is a contractor.
So I think what's changing is the physical layout of the site. They've moved earth, they're building bins, they're having customers coming in. So if it was determined that it was a contractor's yard, I would, I think, make the argument that it already is a contractor's yard.
Right.
Right. I mean, if it is a contract, if there is, I mean, he's got a contractor on site that was there before he bought the property, acting as a contractor's yard. So it's a contractor's yard before he bought the property. He's there as a contractor and it's a contractor's yard and he owns the property. So the use hasn't changed.
Yeah, we're saying we'd just be grandfathered.
Right, that's what you're right.
Not gonna shut it down.
Yeah.
Sure, so-
No, I know. I'm just saying.
I think it would be helpful for the board to what to put it in. But if it's the use that is already existing, that there's
I would view it as a contractor's yard and that it's not changing, but that's just my
Yeah.
2 cents on that.
and then-
Now, if he wants to eventually put a greenhouse or whatever, then it changes, that would change the,
And so the reason for the site plan becomes not a change of use, but a change to the site. It's more about the physical changes that have been and will be made to the site and creating these bins and just moving.
Well,
Dump
he
around.
does he need a permit for 2 block bins that are under I mean, it's under the requirement for an engineered wall, so it's rocks sitting on the site, it's landscaping.
So there's a difference between what requires a building permit and what requires a site plan. The definition of a lot of books. So the regulations apply to development or change or expansion of use for non-residential uses.
So previous to his arrival on the site, the area in question with the bins was storing trailers and trash and cars, and it is now storing bulk materials. There is no change. He just moved the trailers out and set the bins up, and they're sitting on site, and he owns equipment that sits on site with hooks on it that can pick the bins up at any time and move the bins anywhere. The bins are under electrical easements because of the power lines, so they have to be able to move
I
anywhere.
mean, don't
You
you pave under the fence, all right?
Right, but the only reason the paving is there, so you can scoop the material up without contaminating it, and putting it in the back of the guy's truck.
You can move it, but then
Well, he's selling material, so then that material and the asphalt gets picked up and put in another bin as fill and used on job sites as fill and compaction for under the next set of paving. So as far as he's concerned, he's just moving materials around his site and using them in a different way to continue his business, which is the contractor's yard. And he's dealing in bulk materials as a contractor, a landscape contractor.
I think I agree with the uses and everything. It's the change to the site.
Right.
So there's been impervious material that's been added to the site, which has changed the site. So I think where we're going with it, at least where Carrie was going with it, is it's not a change of use permit, it's a change of the site.
Yeah.
Right, so.
And I totally understand coming back and filing permits for the bins, the way they're laid out and the whole configuration and tall bins and getting the permitting for the building and the engineering and all that stuff for that stuff and all of that. If we go back with this layout, if this is an existing use on an existing site, we're still doing the whole wetland thing though for the setback on that side, but we could come back after we have a wetland thing that says we have a wetland, we have a setback, but then we'd just be asking, can we put this where it is in the setback anyways? Yeah, but we need that delineation paid for and flagged in order to come back to ask that, and that way the board has and the town has the record of what is on site right now and what is actually there and what is approved. And for Chris's concern, that wetland is all going to be along that one same edge of the site anyways, but they're going to flag the entire thing to draw it and close it anyways. So, okay. So you and I can talk more about that and what the process involves for the wetland piece and the site survey. But, we'll be talking to Civil about runoff anyways. So, and we'll do the drawings for the bins, submit the permitting for the bins. Does this? So would we come back, would we redo this application once we have site, or would we do a new application? Once we have,
I would
a survey.
say there's no reason to, I don't think it's fair to have them pay the fee
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
That would be unreasonable in my opinion. I think
how long can this sit on a shelf when we try to figure out how to get surveys and things like that done? Because it certainly won't be next month.
I assume you're not willing to accept it as complete at this point.
Correct.
I believe the board only has 30 days to accept it as complete. So I think you'll have to resubmit it. I would recommend that the board waive the fees for the resubmittal. And we'll just give it it'll have a new application number.
Okay.
Submit a new application. We'll waive.
That's what I was, okay.
The only thing is there will be a re-notification fee.
That's
Let
fine.
the abutters know again, but the bulk of the fees would not be very construction again. There are a few more items I want to go over before you guys leave though.
Oh, absolutely.
Obviously, that's difficult to meet aesthetic design standards for that site. I would expect.
I mean,
to
one of
see-
the,
expect to see some waivers for this.
what is nice this site is you don't see it.
And
So don't.
Everything
put your
they've
barn
done
in the road.
the things we've done have been an improvement to the previous. Also, but if there's anything that can be done, maybe at your entrance, you do some plantings in your landscaping company. You guys know how to plant a tree.
Every time we go to the nursery, I come back with trees. It's true. I go down to the.
It's kind of like the person.
I feel like everybody around this table has the same story.
For like the White House that's out front, there's I planted a row of trees. Some of them, they were gonna burn these things. They were $6,000 a piece. Yeah. Yeah, there were 5,500 pound trees that we put in. So.
Um,
Tree saver.
the tree hugger.
So there's no change to the amount that's plowed.
Probably less, actually.
We should,
It's pretty easy to show that
Yeah.
off.
Yeah, and I mean, if we have this civil involved, it's calculation.
It's pretty easy. That's not in the designated for snow storage. And that's another reason why it's important to do both that and the wetlands, because we don't want to be dumping salty snow into the buffer. Solid waste and screening, if there's a dumpster on site, show it. If there's not, say there's no dumpster, basically.
You guys are taking all your stuff from your process right off site, and the existing dumpsters are out back.
Yeah, there, two of the tenants have done dumpsters.
They would definitely be screened from the road, right?
And then I don't know what the board wants to see for anything related to stormwater and drainage. I'll look at you.
Yeah.
There was some, or maybe it's all.
I mean, the thing is that when gravel, just because you have gravel doesn't mean it's permeable.
Especially when you drive over it.
Yeah, I know that alteration of terrain folks have a calculation they use for.
They had-
So apparently they just have to meet the flow or the velocity. So it's not. One of the other.
But are you gonna wanna see calculations for that stuff? Or are you gonna look at it and say, would you be willing to consider a waiver to some of those calculations?
I mean, I think it would be nice to do sidewalk.
Absolutely. Problem is you can't do a site walk until you accept an application. as
Right.
complete.
Yeah.
If any of you wanna visit the site on your own, you can do that. No, I'm serious.
But I think they're not all at the same time, you're not allowed.
Yeah.
Can't be more. Three of us.
Yeah.
Or two at a time.
I think that we would do something about managing stormwater. Whether it's appropriate to do a simple stormwater model like the guys who did here. So that we can get a sense for the offsite flow volumes and velocities. That's for a site like this, I don't think that's a very big pull, especially if you have a site plan that has you can get the areas from it real quick. Are there any kind of stormwater? Does it look like it, any kind of ponds or?
I mean, it's hard to see in the photos. It's something that you really have to see going there. It's just the way that basically this entire flat site that all the bins and everything on, that the thing around it, those rectangular things are essentially the ground, goes uphill there, and the entire thing acts as retention and percolation basin.
Right, but the
So,
one
I
thing,
mean,
one thing you don't know is, maybe you haven't had a storm that's big enough to create,
Oh, yeah.
something that's gonna.
Right, and I would agree entirely if everything on the left of the bins wasn't already existing and sloping downhill below the bins.
Yeah.
And, the other thing that's happening at the lower end of that site is that's also where the loam piles are. I mean, there's a 20-foot tall pile of loam down there.
Yeah.
Just like retaining all of that. So, and again, with that, I mean, that's something that he's gonna have to continually maintain erosion control around, to be selling piles of loam like that there. And it's something that, and maybe that's something we should add to the operations plan or something like that. If that's something that he's gonna need to do for those piles, but.
I think that if you could demonstrate that, like this burned area can fully contain
Yeah.
like X storm, and that's just. a
Yeah, I
simple-
mean, if we can, we should be able to give you a volume at least for what that bowl is.
Yeah. And then you could just do a simple, like,
Yep.
the 100-year storm is 7 inches and this area is this, and that's less than this.
Yep.
Yes. The last thing I want, well, maybe not the last, I won't make that promise, but the other thing I wanted to talk about is these trailers that are being used for storage, I believe, within the setback area. Our definition of structure includes trailers.
There's also a wall that goes in there too, but that's not the real, you don't know what, that has to be surveyed, right? Like that's
True.
just based on.
Right, yes.
But assume it's correct just for conversation tonight. We can't have structures within the setback.
Mhm.
Good thing they move.
So options. You have been, yeah, they have been. No. Looks like they were intended to stay there, but,
They were, yeah, but they can still.
Yeah.
Nice.
Where I'm about to. Drive up and doing.
I do think that a site walk is going to be extremely important to the site. I mean, I visited once, but there was snow on the ground and I wasn't really looking for stuff at the time.
I was
So-
just looking at the log pile.
Let me know when you're going, I'll bring donuts.
He brought me he did bring donuts last time. The donuts unfortunately weren't. So I think it was productive to get started tonight in this way so that they can see where to focus the efforts and where not to. Do you have any other questions for the board?
Are you mad at it?
Did you?
No, I didn't send the old picture.
Anyone
yet.
wants to see what it looked like?
What kind of do?
My favorite is the picture that looks like a nice clean bank until you actually look between the leaves of everything. Like the one thing I saw in there was the trucker sized web strap, just like wrapped around every piece of brush and everything. And I'm looking at that going, if someone was stupid enough to take a mower in there.
What's not good, like, part of the purchase and sale agreement was to remove the trash, and the previous owner wanted me to define what I considered trash. I told him anything that's not naturally occurring in nature. Oh, they took 200 tires out.
Wow.
They had to excavate to get them. Because like once you started popping them, they were just, and then they had plastic pallets buried everywhere. And it was just, like, that was just work.
I think you've taken on quite a task. And
Yeah.
it's going to be.
Thank you for your time.
I was wondering if they should withdraw this application at this point.
Can't hurt.
I would say
Without
probably
prejudice.
considering it's probably gonna take you 30 days to be on this.
Right.
That's what
I think that would be.
Which they've already paid application fees that we can.
right, we can.
Waive the
that.
next.
You'll withdraw the application, see the motion, I think, or just.
If you wanna say it.
What?
And that just, so you'd be withdrawing it.
Your application, you want to withdraw the application, we'll.
And then when you reapply, we'll just waive the fee.
And so.
Are we going to get any more angry cease and desist letters or things like that when we're preparing the,
the-
okay, non-angry.
And
Sorry, as.
the idea is that it kicks off a cooperative effort to fix the situation, which is what's happening. So that's the goal of the letter, is to start that cooperative process. So as long as there's continued cooperation. So you're withdrawing it without prejudice, which means that you can resubmit it in the future.
Awesome.
So you're.
Now, I have to say that.
Yeah, you do.
Please.
Sure.
We have a request from the West Dozer application to extend their timeline. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good luck with everything.
So for applications 50723 and 41123, they've requested an extension of the 90-day requirement to meet all their conditions and get the subdivision plan recorded. They are working on the approvals, but it just takes longer than 90 days. They went before the Board of Selectmen on Tuesday night to introduce the idea of instead of having the open space land go to the homeowners association, to actually transfer that to the town. It sounded like the Board of Selectmen was supportive of that concept.
Yes.
Although since that time, I hear that now they want to do a homeowners association again. So
What?
Clearly the meeting didn't go well.
trying to keep up, but
Well, this is what Bob Pike
Yeah.
said, is that he's seen them to be problematic. That's why we need
I
to
think-
change it in our.
I suspect that someone will have to go back to Bob and explain it will be a smooth process, and that we'll do what we can to make it work.
so how does the planning board feel? Like the regulations say that there has to be a homeowners association, but that the association can transfer the land to the town. Is there a preference of the board of which way that goes? Does it work better one way or another?
Yeah, it should go to the town.
Bob's rationale, that if it's homeowners association, that group will never quite understand it's not really their land.
Yes,
And so that was pretty strong rationale for why it should be given to the town.
I would agree with that, but we've got an issue personally where we gotta go get insurance to cover it, because ours has right of way issues, and that one's gonna have the same issues. Cause there's town trails, snowmobile trails, easements for the power lines on the one that, and you got all those issues, that when you try to get insurance coverage, cause it's 1/15 owned,
Yeah.
it's a nightmare. Let me come give a little spiel to those guys on why they shouldn't.
No, but the board definitely was in favor of having it be town.
So the
I
problem
mean, what issues are transferred to the town with that? You know, I guess it's
well,
saying,
it's a responsibility to steward the land,
And
make sure that.
yeah, if there's trails, then it's maintained by them, not. I mean, that's, I'm not even gonna go down that path, but
So we should make a motion to extend.
Yeah.
By 90 days.
Yes, and then, so if they're gonna keep for the homeowners association, they're good. If they want to switch it to transferring to the town, they do need to come back to the planning board to approve that change. And then the board would have to go through their acceptance process for the land, but I don't know, if they don't. know
does
what they're
it
doing.
stipulate that though in our, that it stipulates, so.
That a homeowners association is required?
Yeah,
Yes,
why
it does.
do-
We
why
need to
do-
get rid
why-
of that.
yeah, why
That's
do
among
we
one
do
of the
that?
changes that we need to get rid of.
So there's one thing I'm unclear about is that it says membership in a homeowners association shall be mandatory for open space developments. And then it talks about,
I mean, you could even just change the language to say it's mandatory if it's going to be
Yeah,
owned by
right.
the
Right.
HOA.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if it's going to be donated to the town, there is no mandatory requirement.
Right.
yeah, because then it says any and all open space shall be held in common ownership by the unit owners or the homeowners association. planning board may permit the transfer of conservation land or an easement to the town, open spaces, or other approved organization.
Yeah,
Right.
well, that actually doesn't have to, yeah, that doesn't have to go through the zoning stuff. It can
It
be done
does.
anytime.
No, it's-
Oh, that's in the
It's the
zoning?
zoning.
Okay.
So I will keep you posted, I guess, and I guess, do you want me to relay a message to the developers on the planning board's preference? Or just
Yeah,
let
it
it
should go to
go
the
whenever
town.
they wanna do it? Cause when they came here for approval, it was under it said the homeowners association, that's what you approved.
And then it's just curious that Bob came in and said that
And
he
then change
doesn't
it.
like homeowners association. He worked in code enforcement here in town.
Right.
And, he knows that they're an issue, so
I'll make a
he was
mo-
trying to make a case for going to town.
Make a motion to extend, at a 90-day extension on application 570-23.
Second,
And
oh, and
411.
And 411-2.
second.
Second.
Second, Jonathan?
Wait a minute.
I
Right,
second.
Danny got it.
I second.
She got it.
You get the buzzer first. All those in favor? Opposed? Backing up on the last thing, the, contractor's yard,
Yeah.
that's not permitted in the I-1 district.
Yeah.
I find the only place a contractor yard is permitted is in I-2, and, I know across the street from Grumps that, I mean, isn't that pretty much what they're doing over there? Is that I think that's kind of a same type of thing. It seems like we have a lot of contractor yards. It's a pretty common thing in our area, and it's kind of, you
I'm
know,
surprised to find that myself. So maybe that's.
add it to the list. Add it to the list, yeah, because it just, I mean, a contractor yard is anything, a contractor's yard. I mean, yeah.
We definitely consider that property that's the development that's straight across from them, from where Grumps is. I mean, they're storing pre-boxed materials out there, right? It's a huge contractor yard.
Yeah,
Are we talking about the?
no,
No,
No, oh.
next to,
like straight
just up the
across.
road from the next property up from them as well.
It's before you get to they store stuff in there, like
I mean, they got site plan approved not that long ago. I mean, I don't know, in the last 10 years. They did
What's
some
the name
stuff
of
in
the
there.
stuff? Yeah, what is it?
I don't even know.
But they put up like a Kwanzaa hut that they get approval for. And I think they had some issues. They took a bunch of trees before they started their site plan.
Seems to be a recurring theme.
So, all right, moving on. We have election of officers. We
Year
just supposed to do it every year, yeah, year ago, actually, I think we're a little late.
Did it late last year, please. It has to be after April before August, so we're right in the perfect window right now.
How do we motion this?
If you can nominate a slate, you can just say keep it the
Are you
same.
guys happy to keep rolling?
I'm fine with it.
Well, somebody can review the minutes if they really want to, but I guess that's fine.
You are.
You're doing a fine job.
Moderator and the minutes guy. I'll nominate Don Brugge Jr. as chair, Stanley Crystal as vice chair, and Adam Sandal as secretary for another year. Johnson, second. Motion, John, second.
There,
Fine.
opposed,
Congratulations.
For your service.
another year.
Your annual pay.
so their driveway for Grumps is right there.
I was actually thinking that's where Grumps was when I needed to get some stone, and I was like, wait a minute, no, okay, so.
Yeah, see, there's like even a greenhouse area back in there.
Maybe they went in as a business.
Well, no, that's not,
Yeah.
it's like a
Yeah.
storage.
Yeah, there's like there's a bunch of pre-positioned material that's all
Contractor was-
97 Dow, if you want to look it up.
They, I don't know what they call themselves, but they get
Yeah,
some
they're-
kind of approval. They did come before the board and they had to get dragged in. Minutes.
Andy?
Yeah. Suggested changes. On the, on that energy committee discussion, I thought it was, while it mentions that Don suggested they prepare a draft to present to the planning board. I think one of the things that we also suggested is that they create the draft now and not wait until the master plan update. And I thought that would be good to mention in terms of the time. Or good to know.
So you could add, so Chair Ruby suggested that the energy committee prepare a draft to present to the planning board prior to the comprehensive master plan update process.
Sure.
That's line 25.
On line 49. Yes. Just when it talks about the, this is the Tyler, it was privacy screening, I would say by 8 native plantings. So adding, changing the of to the word by and adding native between 8 and plantings. And that may be it. Yep, that's it for me.
I make a motion to accept the May 16th, 2024 minutes. Did Jessica recuse on this?
If you want.
Okay.
I'm abstaining. I'm not here.
Christie Wood,
Charlie, as amended.
as amended.
I abstain. So just when, he'll call the votes.
Yeah, so 2 seconds. We get it ready.
I'm sorry.
I
Who
made a
made the
motion.
motion?
Mike
Mike Lawton made the
second.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Jessica,
Jessica.
you got it.
Any non-public?
No, unless you want any further committee gritty on what the Tyler Builders. I think I gave it a fight. Can I just say one more thing? So
Sure.
we're still working toward getting through some subdivision and site plan regulation changes. I didn't bring anything formal because I thought it might be here at least another hour. And we didn't find about Tyler Builders continuing until a couple hours ago. But one thing I did want to bring up, I went to a conference in Keene last week, and one thing that they have done to help streamline planning board meetings and help streamline the process for applicants is create a minor, what they call it, but like a minor approval committee. That's basically a beefed up version of the TRC, the Technical Review Committee of Staff. And that committee would be given the authority to review and approve like minor modifications to site plans. I think a good example would be like last year you guys looked at the EV chargers in the Ford parking lot, things like that, that might not really require coming to a full planning board meeting and just taking a few of the smaller items off the planning board's plate. It also could make it a quicker process for applicant because they could meet more regularly than once a month. They could, okay, we've got an application, let's meet next week. And there would still be a public meeting. It would probably be during daytime working hours, but it would be noticed and the butters would still get a notification and they could participate if they wanted to. So it's just one idea to consider when we're restructuring these regulations. So I was curious if anyone had strong thoughts about that.
I mean, I think some stuff would be great for, but it worry me that some things that, you know what, because, I mean, then it's staff deciding really what's minor, what's not,
Yeah, we have.
you know, where that line is.
Yeah, so definitely would have to be careful with how the delineation is made. And then the other thing to remember is that decisions from that staff group would be appealable back to the planning board. So if anyone on either side of a decision felt it didn't go the right way, it could come back to the planning board. And I think there are other safety mechanisms in place, you know, if staff felt they needed full review. The other thing is that if the town is a butter, it's been determined in other communities that do this, that it would be a conflict of interest for them to do it that way. So, that would eliminate some because the town does own a lot of land.
If we can set the right framework for what goes in there,
Yeah.
since it's a pure vegetable farm, we're uncomfortable with it.
Do you think it's worth, I mean, obviously.
I mean, is that, and that was something that the planning board members would get notified of what went through somewhere that would be
Yeah, we'd have
part of
to
it.
figure out the system, and I'd want to look at a few examples of how other places are doing it, but I just thought it might be.
I mean, there's definitely a lot of stuff I think would be great for, you know, it's like, you know, I've, over the years, there's been many times, why are they here? Why are we? You know,
Especially if it's just like.
Utility one.
But if you have a, you know, an approved site plan, right, that's
That's
you know,
minor.
relatively recent and has everything on it.
Or maybe, yeah, minor change of use or something like that. So I will look and bring some more information. I just wanted to introduce that idea.
Yeah, I wanted to mention, I sat in on the planning webinar that was held today.
Kip came and bugged me.
And stuff, and the one thing that I found interesting, now I'm trying to think whether it was Derry and Keene. There's Derry that their some of their like multi-use were commercial below and the residential above it. Just what we sort of got rid of in that in the
Well, that's what
district there.
that's what they're proposing in Concord.
Right, and
Up
it's
at the mall is gonna be mixed use.
in the same building.
In the same
In
building.
the
and I
same
was like,
building. Yeah, well, that's what we had proposed, and then it's like, well, people aren't going that way, but and then all of a
It was
sudden,
all the rage for a year or two.
what's that?
It was all the rage for a year or two.
Right,
like,
but now it's coming back.
Yeah, and it's the same thing.
The other thing I learned at the conference that Keene has done is they made a comprehensive land development code, which combines their zoning ordinance, their
Oh,
site plan
Keene.
regs,
Yeah.
their planning, their subdivision regs, driveway reg, all of it got put into one document, which works in the city probably better than it would in the town, but it was very interesting.
Yeah, well, when Mary, I think her name is Brunner,
Yeah.
was talking about it, and she said, well, we had all these pieces over the years and and there were conflicts, and I'm like, oh my God, this
Sounds
sounds
really
like what we're
good.
doing there.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
There we go.